So we'll await the signal from NTN. Let me just inform you that this event will be live, so I advise you, if you have sudden movements to dig your nose or do anything, please don't. NTN, how long? Ready? Okay, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to a rather important, very important, ultra important. I had this going all night to see how migration affects all of us. And this is a whole of government approach. And so what is happening today is extremely significant. And I hope every single person understands how migration and issues of migration will affect us. And this policy is going to be significant. So welcome to the media briefing and panel discussion to launch the draft St. Lucia National Migration Policy. To get the ceremony going, I invite you to stand for the national anthem. While I invite BC 1 Dove and PC 217 Stephen to render the national anthem. Thank you very much. Please remain standing as we call Mr. Arnold Jules to bless this ceremony. Mr. Jules.
Can we all bow our heads as we reverence the one who made this possible? Heavenly Father, we come before you with grateful hearts, acknowledging that you are the source of all wisdom, justice, and understanding. As we gather to discuss this draft migration policy, we ask that your divine guidance be upon every single person involved in this process. Grant policy makers, leaders, stakeholders wisdom to make decisions that are fair, compassionate, and just. Help them to remember that behind every policy are real people, families, children, and individuals seeking safety, opportunity, and a better life. Fill every heart with empathy and a genuine desire to protect human dignity. Lord, we pray for balance between national interest and humanitarian responsibility. May this policy reflect integrity, fairness, and a respect for the rights of all people. Remove prejudice, fear, self-interest, and replace them with understanding, cooperation, and unity. We also lift up migrants and their families, protect them on their journeys, provide for their needs, and surround them with hope and peace. Bless this briefing and all discussions that will take place today. May every contribution be constructive, and may the final outcome serve the common good and bring positive impact to our nation and beyond. We trust in your guidance and commit this process into your hands, in no other name but the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Please be seated. So this is a test. I just want you to double check your phones like I am doing to make sure that it is on silent and the ringer is off. So allow me to just establish the protocol. Before I continue, my name is Glenn Simon. I'm the communications manager in the Department of Finance. I have a habit of not telling persons my name, so I'm clearing that up now. So let me welcome His Excellency, Mr. Julian Dubois, the Ambassador for St. Lucia for the Ambassador for St. Lucia for Diaspora Affairs. The Attorney General is not here as yet. Permanent Secretary, Janelle Modest Stephen, and I see we have another Permanent Secretary for Health in the room. Other Permanent Secretaries, Deputy Permanent Secretaries. The Commissioner of Police is not here as yet. Our UN Country Coordinator, Dr. Lorraine Nicholas. Mr. Lake isn't here as yet, but I think he will be here soon. Border Management Expert. Immigration Supervisor, Southern Division, Inspector Ken Shallery. We have Coordinator for the IMO Caribbean, Mr. Patrice Quesada. Did I say it right? And Legal Officer in the Ministry of External Affairs, International Trade, Lucia Jabatis. Chairperson for the Coalition of Civil Society Organizations, Ms. Karen Tobier. Development Consultant, Alicia Bennett Bryan. National Insurance Corporation, not here as yet. Mr. Desmond Dujon Henry. Chief Corporate Officer, St. Lucia Tourism Authority, Ms. Nadia Auger. Director, I don't think the director for the NEMO is here as yet. She? I haven't made your acquaintance. So the director for National Emergency Management Organization, Mrs. Kenisha Jeffrey Isimbert. We have senior public officers and staff of the Ministries of Finance, Health, Foreign Affairs, National Security, Labor, Housing and Local Government, Infrastructure, Justice, Tourism, Equity and Gender Affairs, Education, Youth Development and Sports, Economic Development, Statistics, the Public Service, Home Affairs, Crime Reduction, and People with Disabilities. We had to say all of this because it's very significant that every ministry is involved in this policy. We also welcome the St. Lucia Coalition of Civil Society Organizations, the St. Lucia Red Cross, Raise Your Voice St. Lucia, the St. Lucia Blind Welfare Association, and the St. Lucia Crisis Center. Specially invited guests, the media, the National Television Network for the live coverage. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the media briefing and panel discussion to launch the draft St. Lucia National Migration Policy. So we have a change to our program. Our minister had to travel, but he has left us in capable hands, and we're going to have a welcome from His Excellency, Mr. Julian Dubois. He'll just welcome us as the minister is unfortunately out of Ireland. Let's invite him.
Thanks much, Mr. Simon. Please, I beg your indulgence to adopt this very comprehensive protocol list but I want to single out our Permanent Secretary, Ms. Janelle Modest Stephen, and Mr. Patrice Quesada, who's kind of the two leads in terms of us achieving this great achievement. Sadly, our minister had to travel out at short notice over the weekend, and he couldn't be with us. He has to extend his sincere apologies. And in his stead, I could never really stand back, but I'm going to attempt some welcome remarks on his behalf. First off, I would like to say thanks to all of you, both in person, those in person here, and those virtual. We have a following virtually who have supported that process as well. And I particularly want to welcome Mr. Patrice Quesada to our island, and I hope you have some time to enjoy some of the little perks we have. Okay, this has been a very long journey. Started possibly with what we could call Migration Governance Indicators Assessment that was conducted in 2023. And coming out of this, we have now achieved our draft migration policy in 2026. It's been a long journey. This long journey has been supported by many agencies. It's been a complex process, and I want to take the opportunity to thank all of the agencies who have made it possible. It has involved training activities, countless organizational meetings, virtual meetings with folks overseas, the input of the likes of the diaspora. You know, it's been very involved, and we had to review quite a few times. Public sector, private sector, CSOs, civil service organizations, NGOs, all shared their contributions in making this draft migration policy possible. A lot of it was based on hand-holding by the experts of the IOM, which provided a consultant to provide general guidance to us. And I want to take this opportunity to say thanks to all of you. I also want to welcome all to this media brief, and it is my hope, my wish, that the success that we've achieved so far or realized so far, we could realize it as well in today's event. So with these few words, let me say, on behalf of the Minister, welcome to all of you. Welcome to this media brief, and let's hope the best for this event. Thanks so very much.
So let me recognize Dr. Jules, who has walked into the room, Director General of the OECS. So I'm going to call upon Inspector Ken Shalry, and he's going to provide remarks talking about the integrated cross-sectional nature of the migration management process. He's going to talk about the importance of the policy being embraced by an all-of-government and society approach. Let's welcome him, as he has been an integral part of the development of this draft policy. Inspector, Immigration Supervisor for the Southern Division, Inspector Ken Shalry.
Good morning, all. Please allow me to adopt the protocol already established. Yep. I'm here on behalf of ASP Lionel, who's head of immigration. If ever there was a need for collaboration of all stakeholders of a society, it's in the area of migration. And this process brought together a number of government agencies and NGOs in preparing this draft policy. During those discussions, it brought to the fore the importance of all government agencies and the rest of society in putting together this draft policy. Excuse. Spearheaded by the Ministry of External Affairs, along with representatives of the IOM, there was discussion on the importance of agencies working together for migration policy and migration management. This policy needs to be embraced by all to allow us to harness the opportunities of migration, as well as mitigating against the risk. On behalf of the Commissioner of Police and Mr. Lionel, who's head of immigration, I would like to thank Ambassador Dubois and his team for allowing us to be part of and participating in putting together this important policy. Immigration, being at the forefront of the migration process, plays a critical role, as we would be collecting a lot of data that can be shared with other government agencies in managing the migration process. So once again, on behalf of the Commissioner and Mr. Lionel, Mr. Dubois and your team, thank you for having us participate and contribute to this draft policy. very important part of us as a nation moving forward. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Inspector Ken Shallery. And let me just ask a question. What is migration? Yeah, what is I did my research last night, so what is migration? So I went in and I was trying to figure out what is so important about this legislation. And there are three different terms that we learned from social studies class, probably in secondary school: migration, immigration, and emigration. And these are going to be key features of this policy. So if you don't know, I give you a chance to look up your phones, and there'll be a prize probably under your chair or something if you get it right. We have a video presentation for you, and this presentation takes you into the process of developing the policy. And as I said, it's a long journey here. It's not over. This is still draft. And we really want, after you receive the draft, the full draft version, that you peruse it. And if there are any amendments that you could come up with before the final legislation is drafted, then it'll be important to share. So I invite you to view the screens for the video.
Migration has always been part of human history. Today, it remains a powerful driver of global development, bringing opportunity, economic growth, remittances, population growth, but it also brings challenges. Through strong policies, countries like St. Lucia can manage migration for development.
We are dealing with the complexities of migration, and internationally. For St. Lucia, you have lower fertility rate, lower birth rate, is falling below the mortality rates. You have issues of brain drain, immigration, persons leaving St. Lucia to seek opportunities elsewhere. Whereas you have the challenges also of developing this country, and you need to bring in skilled labor, you need professionals. How do you do that?
The Diaspora Affairs Office, yes, we are the champions, so to speak, for this undertaking. We're in the pursuit of a national migration policy for our country, but we cannot do it alone. It's an all-inclusive, it's an everyone activity. Migrants' arrival on the country would have an impact on everybody in the country. And it's for every agency, the nurses, the doctors, the police, border control, community leaders, equity, Ministry of Equity, everybody must be on board.
This policy process began with stakeholder consultations, documentation analysis throughout the process of applied research, throughout the formulation of the policy framework, validation by different stakeholders comprising the government of St. Lucia line ministries, which made up the National Policy Development Committee, supported by United Nations actors, the IOM Caribbean and global actors, different development frameworks through the IOM, which supported policy guidance. Also, the Diaspora of St. Lucia provided input, civil society actors, and the private sector to ensure this policy was all of government, all of society led.
It has been a wonderful experience in learning how much data we need to do this migration policy and how important the data is, because we need to understand why people are leaving, where they're going in relation to the labor force, because you find a lot of nurses, teachers leaving St. Lucia, so we need to find ways to fill these gaps. And one of the most important things that this training has taught me is that all the agencies, we have to learn to come together and share our data so we can make a proper migration policy.
Let's have a round of applause for the producers of this video. I think I recognize a number of persons in the room in this video, showing the hard work that has gone in. And as was said, this is a whole of government approach. And you saw ministries of health, you saw customs, you saw even infrastructure, everybody, statistics. And this policy is not supposed to be one that just sits on a shelf, but one that we could give life to. So I hope from today, I mean, the room is not as filled as we'd like it to be, but that is not a deterrence for us. So now we move on to the IMO. And the International Organization for Migration has served as the technical partner providing support and coordination to the consultation, research, and capacity building of the drafting of this policy. Funding for the project activities, including the closing event, this one, was provided by the IMO's Development Fund, a facility available to IMO member states such as St. Lucia. To provide us with some remarks is Mr. Patrice Quesada, coordinator for IOM Caribbean, and he's going to talk about the overview of IOM's technical support, the importance of migration management, and the role of the IOM Development Fund. Let us welcome Mr. Quesada.
Thank you very much. And a good morning to everyone. I take it that the protocols have been established now, but I would like to recognize the Honorable Ambassador Julien Dubois, who has been instrumental in bringing us where we are today, the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of External Affairs, and other distinguished guests from the different ministries that have been part of these experiences. But also taking into account, as was said multiple times by multiple speakers, and what you've heard from everyone in the video, every single person that spoke today, spoke about one thing. Did you pick it up? That it requires a whole of society approach, that it requires everyone coming together, because the issue of migration is not something that belongs to one sector. It's something that across different aspects. And being here today, I must say, is a real pleasure for me. We were part of discussion back in 2023, and I can't believe it's already 3 years ago, about launching that process we've been doing through the extensive migration governance indicators process, which is basically a landscape of the migration policy or all aspects of migration policy within health, education, and other sectors. And there we could feel that there was a very strong interest from the government, from the Prime Minister, from the Minister of External Affairs, from Ambassador Dubois, from the Permanent Secretary, to go beyond that, to go beyond just a landscape review. And this is the commitment that on our side we felt we needed to support. And that's how we went to see our colleagues, and you will see from my colleague Lucia. We went to our own internal little pocket of fundings that we have in IOM, which is the IOM Development Fund, to make sure that we would get some possibility to support St. Lucia, because the commitment was there to move beyond a landscape assessment of policy and to start really thinking through what it means to manage migration for a country like St. Lucia. And that commitment has been there throughout. And as you can feel, it has been a long journey, and you really require a lot of stamina to go through all that process, the validation exercise, the stakeholders, the interview, everything that needs to go through that. So being here today is really, I'm very happy to be back in St. Lucia, I have to say. We spent some fantastic holidays with the family a couple of months ago here, so just being back on my own is also very nice, and I will definitely enjoy it. I will definitely enjoy the hospitality, but also because you've been leading the efforts in the Caribbean on showing what developing a migration policy that it's fit for purpose, that is forward-looking, you have demonstrated what it is. And I'm really happy to be able to be here for that. What we see right now, and we know that a policy is just the beginning of something else, which is the hard part, the implementation. But when it's well done, as it was done in St. Lucia, it really gives you an edge to be able to implement it. And that is coming through the extensive level of consultation that took place. You've heard it, it's about all of society approach. Civil society organizations have been involved in the process. Different ministries and agencies have been involved in the process. Because each single one of you that have participated in there, and you've seen there were a lot of stakeholders in the video, a lot of you are also in the room today, you all hold a little piece of the puzzle. What mattered was to bring all the pieces together and to start thinking through what does it mean from a law enforcement perspective to have migration policy that ensure the security of the citizen of St. Lucia. Because we know that this is an extremely important matter for the citizen of St. Lucia. Security is paramount. But we also know that others have families abroad. Some of you may also be relying on remittances. We understand that the diaspora for St. Lucia represent 12% of the population, bringing 2.5% of GDP in remittances. That's an important source for many families in this country, and something to build on, something to look at in terms of can we turn remittances into investment, productive investment for the country. And those are the recommendations and provisions that you will find in the draft migration policy. We also understand that some employers might be looking for skills that they are not able to find on the local markets and are looking at the regional market to ensure that the service that they can provide meets the need of their customers. All those perspectives are valid. The question is, how do you bring them together? How you take them into account? How do you look at the trade-off that some of them might be creating? Sometimes you feel that it might be a zero-sum game, but trust me, it's really possible to turn that into something that is positive for everyone through a well-informed migration policy, through the data that have been collected to inform it. So not something that is just based on perception, but something that is based in factual information about what is the reality of migration for a country like St. Lucia. On the side of the International Organization for Migration that I represent today, we are here to support. We are providing the methodology to bring everyone around the table, to provide the capacity building that was required to ensure that everyone that was participating understood and used the terminology in the same way, understood the issues that were there, were exposed to the legal frameworks that they might not be aware because they work in health and not in education, trying to bring everyone at the same level of understanding to ensure that the discussion will be well informed, and to ensure that this would allow to have a very well-balanced act. It's a bit of a dance of bringing different policy recommendations together. The objective is to look at resilience. It's to look at the protection, the dignity of everyone in St. Lucia, including foreigners. It's to look at sustainable development while at the same time embracing the changes that are to come. And the changes and challenges that are facing the Caribbean are numerous. We talk a lot about climate change, especially as we brace for hurricane season start with a very strong El Nino and very different models of what this season may bring. But we know that this is a strong vulnerability. We know that also climate change, natural disasters, they are driver of mobility and migration, as we've seen in neighbor islands like in Dominica. But the one I'd like to focus on a bit more is the issue of demographic decline. This is something that the Caribbean is experiencing very strongly, and that has far-reaching consequences, especially in the midterm, but especially when you start looking at longer-term trends. In the case of St. Lucia, what is very interesting is that right now, as you are probably very well aware, In terms of demographic, we are facing more or less slightly above 0% population growth, which means that it's currently reaching a plateau. But the reality is that fertility rates are already below 1.4. The replacement rate, to ensure that there is a continuous growth of population, is 2.1. So while the figure of growth is plateauing, the understanding is that the decline in terms of demographic will start. St. Lucia is probably in a better position than some other Caribbean countries, sister islands that are already experiencing this decline, like in Barbados, where I'm resident, where there is already a net loss of population year after year. But this is also coming, and being ready with a migration policy that can be part of the solution is extremely important, because demographic decline means aging population. It means investing in an industry of care. It also means that you would have less workers and more retirees, pensioners. From a fiscal perspective, it poses a lot of challenges. And this is not just for the Caribbean. This is really across the Caribbean space. And that's also one important element that I'd like to flag while having this opportunity today, is how much this conversation that you have here can also inspire the rest of the Caribbean, and in particular CARICOM member states, but also member states of the OECS in the Eastern Caribbean. I'm saying that because you all face similar challenges, especially when it comes to demographic decline or the impact of climate change. And a lot of solutions cannot just be national solutions. They will have to be regional solutions by pulling resources together, by pulling ideas and solutions together. On the side of the International Organization for Migration, this is the reason why we have also been supporting since 2022 the CARICOM Secretariat with the development of the CARICOM Regional Migration Policy Framework, which is currently under consideration by the competent Council of Ministers, and that has been part also of an extensive process to ensure that priorities for all the member states of the Caribbean could be put together into a policy that could help the regional institution and that could help the national institution to cope with the challenges to come, but also to seize any opportunities around migration, and there are many. Remittances is one of them. Diaspora engagement and return is another one. Labor migration to fill gaps in sectors that are under tension is another one. There are plenty of solutions, but also challenges that needs to be looked at from a social protection perspective and others, security perspective, as we are mentioning. That's also important to bring the CARICOM prospect, because one of the reasons why we were so keen on supporting St. Lucia to develop its national migration policy was precisely to give an example to the rest of the CARICOM member states on how to do it. And I'm particularly grateful and proud that we've been able to support St. Lucia by being the first pilot in the Caribbean region to undertake this national migration policy, inspired by the regional migration policy, by the different areas that we had collected at the time, to already have a concrete example that other member states can look at and decide to implement as well, to bring the regional migration policy priorities into their national consideration. And this is something that is a testament to your leadership as a country within the CARICOM space, and we are really grateful to have been able to accompany you in that process. I would like again also, and conclude with that word, to really thank you for the friendship throughout. I can really speak on behalf of my colleague from IOM that have accompanied that process, the consultants that have come to St. Lucia, that have been supporting throughout. I think most of them are in the call today, from Vinlis to Jalissa to Maxine to Joel. I think we really felt like the interest in it, the drive for finding solutions, the ability to listen and understand what best practices came from the rest of the world, and it has really been a true pleasure to support you in that process. So I really would like to thank you again for that. And to conclude by saying that you can count on us for the next step. We will be there as well to support with the hard part, with the implementation of what is the first national policy on migration for St. Lucia. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Mr. Quesada. And, it's striking what you said, 2.5% of GDP in remittances. That is significant, but also the fear that we have a declining population and we need to do something about it. St. Lucia is below 1.4. So probably the CMO was right. We need to get busy, because we may laugh at it today, but we will pay for it tomorrow. So I think it is something that we have to look at. And in a different place, I remember the Minister for Tourism mentioned that, even with the Citizen by Investment Program, migration, the whole look of it, we may need to bring in resources, bring in talent, and that's one of the ways that we could help our economy grow. So thank you for your remarks. So to acknowledge St. Lucia's status as an IOM member state, let me invite Alessa Castelfranco, IOM Development Fund, to share some remarks with us. She is virtual and she is with us online. And let me acknowledge all our participants online as well. We have about 96 persons so far online, and shows the interest that persons have. Actually, you outnumber the persons in the room. So, Alessa, I'm not sure if you could hear me.
I can hear you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we're hearing you. So I invite you for your remarks.
Thank you very much and good morning. I'm dialing in from far away, so I hope the connection is good. Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished representatives of the Government of St. Lucia, colleagues and partners. Protocol has already been established. It is a privilege to join you today on behalf of the International Organization for Migration and the IOM Development Fund. Allow me first to warmly congratulate the Government of St. Lucia on the completion of this draft national migration policy. This represents a significant milestone and reflects a strong commitment to strengthen migration governance in a comprehensive and forward-looking manner. I would also like to express our sincere appreciation to St. Lucia for its confirmed and continued engagement with IOM and for its continued membership. Your partnership is essential, and we value the trust placed in us to support national priorities in the areas of migration. The IOM Development Fund is particularly grateful for the opportunity to contribute to this important achievement. Supporting member states in developing and implementing policy and legal frameworks for migration governance is a core function of the fund, alongside broader capacity development efforts in the areas such as migration management, labor migration, counter-trafficking, and migration and development. My colleague Patrice went into detail covering some of these areas of support. In the Caribbean region, the fund has supported a diverse and growing portfolio of projects. These include initiatives to strengthen migration policy frameworks, enhance diaspora engagement, improve coordination mechanisms on human mobility, and addressing emerging challenges such as climate-related migration and the protection of vulnerable migrants. Together, these efforts highlight the importance of tailored and country-driven approaches that respond to regional and national priorities. As we look ahead, I would like to encourage government counterparts to remain closely engaged with their IOM offices and the Caribbean regional colleagues. The IOM Development Fund provides funding opportunities on an annual basis, and early engagement is key to ensuring that countries can fully benefit from this support and continue building on the progress already achieved. In closing, let me once again commend St. Lucia for this important step. We look forward to continued collaboration in advancing safe, orderly, and regular migration for the benefit of all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Castelfranco. And we move straight into our next presenter, and she will talk about St. Lucia as a leader in recognizing the importance of a national migration policy. And she's going to present on the development of St. Lucia's first ever national migration policy, Ms. Alicia Bennett Bryant, our development consultant. Alicia, can you hear me?
Yes, I am able to hear you. Thank you so much.
So let's welcome her anyway, even though she is virtual. And the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Master of Ceremonies, His Excellencies. With all protocols already been observed, I'd just like to acknowledge His Excellencies in the room, as well as members of the United Nations, including Mr. Patrick Quesada, coordinator for the IOM Caribbean, other distinguished guests. Good morning. Thank you so much. Are you able to see my presentation on screen? Okay, great. Okay, it is my pleasure to walk you through the brief process of how we managed to arrive at this critical juncture and the draft St. Lucia's Migration Gender Sensitive Policy. Recognizing St. Lucia as a leader in migration governance meant, as my previous speakers have mentioned, it's the first organization of Eastern Caribbean state to complete the migration governance indicators, which would have provided the platform or the foundation for the need for migration policy and effective coordination. This policy, as mentioned before, was also developed in parallel with the CARICOM regional approach to a migration policy. And as such, this policy was fed through the direct thematic areas from such a process that is still ongoing. And so this makes St. Lucia a leader within the OECS region with regard to border security, looking at the immigration trends, looking at its alignment to global frameworks to which St. Lucia has made commitments such as the Global Compact for Migration, the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, and the 17 goals, as well as the regional frameworks such as the OECS and CARICOM mobility management frameworks that has implications for migrants across the region, whether it's emigrants or immigrants itself. This policy also supports an inclusive approach and all of government, all of society approach, which positions migration as a cross-cutting, cross-fertilization team that sees migration as an issue of development and resilience for climate and environmental management across the region. What was said on by my previous speakers, it says that the process began from 2023 under the strengthening of regulatory and policy frameworks in order to ensure that good governance is established in St. Lucia, as well as under the evidence data as from the migration indicators assessment that was completed in 2024. And so what we have as the foundation was data driving this policy. Building the foundation was a number of capacity development exercises that was designed to ensure that data is there to drive whatever plans are in place, the policy process, and also to build capacities to manage and measure migration going forward. It was also supported by both funding assistance from the IOM Development Fund, as well as technical assistance from a number of IOM colleagues, both globally, regionally, and at the within the OECS region. Also, the necessary tools were provided to ensure that migration is a best practice in the region and guided by other parallel frameworks from Jamaica, Fiji, Suriname, as well as what is being done under the CARICOM regional approach to migration policy. What is also critical is that this policy responds directly to the MGI assessment findings and other data that came out of academia, Dr. Mortley and other scholars, and the OECS frameworks that are in place that will support effective implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. And so this policy benefited from other frameworks, evidence-based positioning within the region, and also effectively supports CARICOM and OECS and global frameworks to which St. Lucia has committed. And as we said, it's a work in progress, so the hardest part now will be to finalize for costed implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. And as of all things, we look towards the impact, the outcome. So yes, we do have a policy, but what we are looking forward to is the leadership that will be provided through the National Migration Policy Development Committee under the leadership of His Excellency and the Permanent Secretary within the Ministry of External Affairs and Diaspora Affairs, guiding national development sectoral priorities across health, education, remittance, diaspora engagement, and especially border management, and looking how we can take advantage of St. Lucia's demographic dividend in terms of labor mobility and the management of social protection priorities going forward. So in a nutshell, the process has been long, but it has also been iterative, it has also been participatory, and it benefited from the 7 principles or the 7 key stages outlined within the essentials of IOM's Essentials of Migration Management Handbook, including issue identification and definition, which began in 2023 and was concluded through the Migration and Governance Indicator process, as well as other development work that was done by Dr. Martin and other scholars within the OECS region, looking at where data is and the need for harmonization of data to effectively manage migration. Looking at stakeholder consultations across the OECS region, CARICOM, other UN entities, benefiting, as I mentioned, from the CARICOM regional policy framework approach. The thematic areas for this policy was guided by the parallel process that also began within the CARICOM, the stakeholder consultations across civil society actors that was done. We also benefit from the data and the feedback from those actors that were engaged. And then we went into policy formulation, looking at synergies, looking at the data across immigration, noting that, as was mentioned, remittances contribute to 2.5% of GDP, not as strong as COVID era, but also significant how it acts as a buffer in times of crisis. And especially now with geopolitical tension within the region, migration and remittance and diaspora engagement is very critical for managing going forward and benefiting also from the diaspora policy that is now being implemented in St. Lucia. The consultation process also looked at a number of validation processes across diaspora inputs, civil society actors, the United Nations actors, and a 2-day stakeholder engagement that we looked at the critical sectoral priorities across different agencies. What are the prioritizations for each entity? Who will manage this process? Key responsibility areas. Culminated in February at the last National Policy Development Committee sitting, where the process went through deliberations, looking at the key areas, finalization, and a final review before it was submitted for final editing by IOM and myself. And so we are now at stage 5, where the policy will be reviewed again by all key stakeholders, both online and face-to-face, and then finalization for policy adoption by the government, being led through the Ministry of External Affairs and Diaspora Affairs. Going forward, the most critical steps now will be policy implementation, a costed framework, followed by a monitoring and evaluation framework to see, are we doing the right things to ensure that migration is effectively measured, monitored, and managed to support the goals of safe, orderly migration and leaving no one behind. And so, in a nutshell, I just want to thank you for participating in the process, and we look forward to the presentation and the implementation process. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bennett Bryan, for this, journey as to where we are, how we got here. And I take note that what you said, this is stage 5, and it is hopefully for final review, and then policy implementation is what everyone is looking forward to. We now have a few, physical copies of the policy, and it's now the turn of the IOM to present a copy of the draft policy to the Ministry of External Affairs. And we call upon Mr. Quesada and Mr. Julian Dubois. PS will be doing it. So please, we ask you to come forward. And you stand right behind the little table, and the flags will be in the background. And we invite our photographer, he's still in the room? Yes, to get a photo of the handing over. So after the photos are taken, then the video, keep looking this way, the video is now going to capture you. The video, the cameras, I think, wanted to capture you as well. So the photographers were obscuring the view. One second. Okay, so now we call on Ambassador for St. Lucia for Diaspora Affairs, His Excellency Mr. Julian Dubois, and he'll be presenting on the draft policy to the media and other stakeholders. So, Mr. Dubois, but you'll say a few words before. Okay.
Again, good day, folks. And one of the outcomes or results of the Second World War was large numbers of displaced people seeking refuge in other countries, and for various reasons. Each country dealt with this migrant population differently, in some instances with scant regard for the well-being of these vulnerable people. The United Nations response to this development, and in an effort to promote the safe, orderly, and regular migration of people around the world, was the establishment of the International Organization on Migration. St. Lucia has been a member of the IOM since November 2015. The IOM coordinates the United Nations Network on Migration, which is a formal grouping of organizations and parties interested in the promotion of safe, orderly, and regular migration. The network's engagements are closely aligned to the broader IOM work plans. The IOM Strategic Plan 2024-2028 centers on 3 key objectives: saving lives and protecting people on the move, driving solutions to displacement, facilitating pathways for regular migration. The network has focused on the establishment of the Global Compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration, which is used by countries for assessing their progress in addressing migration-related issues. The Global Compact is framed in a way consistent with Target 10.7 of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, in which member states committed to cooperate internationally to facilitate the safe, orderly, and regular migration. It is designed to support international cooperation on the governance of international migration, provide a comprehensive menu of options to states from which they can select policy options to address some of the most pressing issues around international migration, and to give states the space and flexibility to pursue its implementation based on their own migration realities and capacities. One of the tools advocated by the IOM is the Migration Governance Indicator Assessment. It is conducted by the IOM at the request of countries and aims to help countries take stock of the migration policies and strategies in an effort to identify good practices and areas with potential for further development. By focusing on government ownership of the process, the MGI supports governments at the national and local levels to gradually improve their migration management systems. In 2023, an MGI assessment was conducted for St. Lucia. One of the recommendations emanating from the assessment was the need for a more structured, data-driven, whole-of-government approach to migration migration management here, hence the pursuit of a national policy. So our migration policy development process, okay? Given the state of affairs, we bidded to the IOM Development Fund for support to pursue that policy. And in June 2024, funding was approved and the project execution planned for a schedule between the 1st of January to the 31st of December 2025. Okay, so the Diaspora Affairs Office has since been the champion of this undertaking. We actually went a little over. I mean, the process was practically complete by December 31st of 2025. However, with the scheduling of general elections towards the end of November, or December 1st it was, this pushed us back a little, and hence the reason why we are at this stage right now. The anticipation was that we would have closed off completely, had the handing over during the month of December. Okay, if I may just speak to the process. A National Migration Policy Development Committee comprising representatives with the support of multiple government, private sector, diaspora, CSOs, and NGO communities was established, and a series of training activities were held for relevant stakeholders on the essentials of migration management, the essentials of migration data management, migration border management. Okay, with the support of a consultant who presented earlier, the draft policy was developed. Okay, this consultant engaged in interviews with a number of the agencies, many stakeholders, as well as meetings. A series of policy review activities was held with the consultant, as well as validation exercises, and a series of the National Committee was held throughout that process. The hope is that that committee will continue, would be most likely supported by the Cabinet of Ministers on the approval of that policy to continue coordinating and overseeing the implementation of that policy. The policy goal is to ensure migration in St. Lucia is adequately measured, monitored, and managed through a gender-sensitive, rights-based, and development-oriented framework that promotes inclusion, protects vulnerable groups, and harnesses migration for national resilience and sustainable growth. The policy guiding principles are: one, human rights and protection, gender equality and social inclusion, evidence-based policy, policy coherence and the whole of government approach, development orientation, because the hope is that at the end of implementing this policy, the focus is our national development goals. Alignment with regional and international frameworks, and public awareness and sensitization. This is key because you don't want to be involved in pursuing a policy that your general population is ignorant about. Some of the priority thematic areas: labor migration and decent work, migration data, monitoring and evidence-based research, protection, human rights and social inclusion, migration, diaspora and development synergies, migration in crises and environment, climate-related mobility, remittances and development, return and reintegration, and border management and safe and orderly migration. And border management is key. Yes, at the heart of it, you welcome migrants, you embrace migration, but you do not want to put your population at risk or unnecessary risk, so to speak. The best practices and lessons learned from that process: one, the need to secure buy-in and commitment of the various agency leaders at inception. The challenge has been some agencies who we perceive would be critical or would have their hands most dirty in dealing with migration issues. Some of them are of the view this is not an issue for us. Migration management may not be a top priority for us at this time, but we cannot await when it becomes a top priority to try and scramble. Like I said in disaster management, we plan and prepare in the time of calm. So here we are at peace, so to speak, that's peace, quote unquote, with regards to dealing with migration. Hence the best time to do what we're supposed to do. The need for education of stakeholders on migration and possible migration impacts early in the development process. So we believe the stakeholders, we need to provide the education. We heard our master of ceremony speak to what is migration, what are migrants, what are immigrants. And I'm not certain that the general populace has embraced exactly what it means, what it represents, and what the impacts could be to them. For us pursuing, we hear the first world countries actually come poaching the cream of our crop, our talent. Should we be pursuing similar targets, similar goals? And these are some of the questions we need to ask ourselves. And thirdly, the challenge to secure the participation of many stakeholders who may not necessarily recognize migration as a responsibility given their mandate. And yes, some agencies may think, yeah, migration is important, and I think we need to prepare for it. But given I'm a school teacher, I work with the Ministry of Health, and I don't think that's necessarily a priority for us, and we don't necessarily have to be involved in that discussion. So of the view, as we go forward, these are some challenges that we need to consider. And the next steps. The next steps I perceive is the Ministry of External Affairs, International Trade, Civil Aviation, and Diaspora Affairs engage the Cabinet with regards to the approval, the adoption of the migration policy. That process may entail some revisions, some changes, because it certainly is going to require budgetary support, and we all know what's like at this how some people say, this guava season, how difficult that could be. And on the very top of things, or looking at things peripherally, the question I've been asked is, how, your policy just asks for so much for migrants, things that we can't even offer our nationals. Okay, and hence the reason why we have to look at this thing with an objective eye and look to get a sense of balance. And on the approval of the Cabinet of Ministers, the next step would be the actual implementation of the policy, which would require some legislative changes, amendments, and possibly the development of entire legislation to deal with it. I was heartened to hear Mr. Kiseda say that the IOM stands prepared to provide us support in that regard, and we will certainly reach out as we pursue the full implementation of the policy in whichever form, revised form, if so be it, that it finds itself. With these few words, let me say thanks so very much.
Thank you very much. And you mentioned something that is so important for the whole of government, whole of society approach. We must have this public sensitization. And so the campaign starts from today to ask persons to get them to understand how important this is. And that's from our schools as well. So with that, we invite Mr. Dubois up, and you'll be giving out a few copies. Not yet, not just yet. You could keep your folder here still, and you're giving out a few copies of the policy. And so we invite our media to receive a copy. We have one of our key partners, the St. Lucia Times, and she's going to get this copy on behalf of the media. GIS is in the room, and we invite the GIS as well to come up for a copy. So we're also asking the Director General of the OECS, Dr. Didicus Jules, and our UN Country Coordination Office, Dr. Lorraine Nicholas, get her copy. And we're going to ask some of our stakeholders, because this is an all of St. Lucia approach. We call on first the St. Lucia Blind Welfare Association to get a copy. Raise Your Voice, St. Lucia. And the St. Lucia Coalition of Civil Society Organizations. And one more, I think is very significant. I saw this gentleman wheeling himself into the room, and he represents NCPD. And I know he will wheel himself across here to get it, because we have to show that this is not about just foreign affairs, just division of labor. It is for everyone, and every single player is important. So let's welcome him. Round of applause. Okay, so as you get your folder, we will now have a very short panel discussion. Let me invite our panelists to the chairs up front. And we have His Excellency Mr. Julian Dubois, Ambassador for Diaspora Affairs, Inspector Ken Shalry, Immigration Supervisor, Southern Division, Alicia Jean-Baptiste, Legal Officer at the Ministry of External Affairs, International Trade, Civil Aviation and Diaspora Affairs, Karen Tobier, Chairperson, Coalition of Civil Society Organizations for St. Lucia. And the moderator is Mr. Patrice Queseda, IOM Caribbean's coordinator. So let's welcome them. Let us swap seats so that he looks down at you instead. You're right, just to swap seats. So now I hand you over to your moderator, who will take over for the next 30 minutes. And you will get your timing at the back when your time is up. And it is a question and answer, so we have 10 minutes of questions afterwards.
Good morning. Are you all here?
Good morning.
Yes? All right, so that's the active part now that we've done all the formalities. So we're really counting on you for the tough questions, right? All our panelists are ready for that. And just to warm them up a bit, I will be asking like the initial questions to them. A little, just to get them to warm up, something that I would kindly ask you to respond briefly for the first question. And then in the second round, we'll ask you a little bit more in depth, especially about the specific role that you are representing as organization. And then hopefully we'll be able to open for additional questions from all of you. So we really count on your support to make it interactive. All right. So let me start with something. I will ask the same questions to everyone right now. And again, brief answer, just speak with the heart. So you've all been part of the development process. You were all sitting in the room at some points discussing migration issues. So what I'd like to get from you is a little bit like, what was a moment that you had during this discussion where you felt that what you were doing was important, and why? Simple question, right? You want to start? Ambassador Edouard?
Thanks so very much, Mr. Mike. Okay, actually, in my work, generally, there are some people with challenges in the diaspora, accessing simple things like their civil status documents and so on. But the opportunity to have civil status in the room, discussing some of these challenges that, even migrants would have on arrival here, and so on, I think we were able to get a greater sense or a greater appreciation for some of these challenges. And to my mind, that was happening for me, and it registered as one of my key, eye openers during that process.
You would have a concrete example of one of those challenges that you recall?
Yeah, we were able to impress upon them, some of the actual challenges individuals had with accessing, say, like an application or correction to a birth certificate that was actually holding up their lives wherever, whatever country that they were. And to them, they would probably be seeing it. This is the protocol. This is the SOP. This is how we do it. But sometimes you have to appreciate not everything comes in black and white. And there are some nuances. And we were able to share with them some of the stories. And I think, there was, at least indicated to me, was a greater sense of appreciation for some of these nuances.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And to bring it back also to very concrete challenges that every citizen of this country may be facing. Thank you. What about you?
Good morning, everyone. I think for me, it was a little different because I actually had the pleasure of coordinating one of the discussions, the consultations down here, which was the consultation with the CCSO members and all NGOs and CSOs in St. Lucia. So in having to coordinate that, I actually got to know a lot more of the organizations in St. Lucia who function as NGOs and as CSOs, and bringing people into a room from all stratas of our country, from the farmers to people who represent women, who represent all parts of society, and sitting in a room and getting their perspectives, their lived perspectives on what immigration meant to them and how migration may affect them, and having that sort of conversation, it really gave me an appreciation, and I was really happy to have been the person who was able to bring all of those people into a room for that type of consultation. So it really was an eye-opening experience for me as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that and for having also contributing so actively, Mr. Bier, in bringing the different actors together and being able also to listen to the concern. And again, it brings us back to the fact that it has a concrete impact on people's life. It's not just an abstract discussion around concept. over to you.
Good morning. Similarly, it gave me an awareness of the importance of the issues of migration and the importance of collaboration among all the relevant stakeholders. Also, what was key to the entire discussion is also migrants who come across to the other countries because of hurricanes and natural disasters. This one did not come to mind before. Also, the importance of women and their role in migration as well. Also bringing across the children and the different issues that they face regarding schooling for children, proper daycares, proper education, and proper taking care of the children overall. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that and for also acknowledging that we don't know everything about the migration phenomenon. We're all focusing on some parts of it, and that it can be useful to broaden perspectives to understand it from the children eye, from a woman eye, from anyone that has specific needs, for instance. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you. Inspector, over to you.
Yes, good morning all. So from my perspective, having been part of this process, coming in more or less as a law enforcement person and hearing the different perspectives from the various stakeholders, it was an eye-opener. I recall some exchanges, and Ambassador Dubois just mentioned in terms of developing the policy and some of what we need to see in there versus what we can offer to our own nationals. And I recall Mr. Lick putting in some serious blows in terms of what it is that we're trying to do versus what it is that happens currently. So another part for me was the data that we actually collect at the port of entry. It never occurred to me how much we were capturing and how much we can share with other agencies until participating in this process.
Thank you very much, Inspector. So that's two very important points. So the gap between the reality, the current reality of what is migration management in St. Lucia towards what can be a vision and ensuring that the gap is not too wide, so it's not unrealistic when trying to implement it. But at the same time, also the importance of data to underpin everything that needs to be done in the migration field. So maybe I will stay with you and then ask you the next questions, going a little bit more in depth from your perspective, so really taking the law enforcement perspective. What is it that you find in this draft migration policy that is there that makes you feel confident that you found the right balance when it comes to law enforcement, immigration in particular?
Okay, so during the process, it was an eye-opener, as I said, for me as a law enforcement, where you now be able to differentiate victims from perpetrators of our Immigration Act, and therefore the policy guides how you handle those situations, how you deal with individuals who are perpetrators against those who are victims.
Thank you. Are there other aspects of the policy when it comes especially to security-related provisions, or when it comes to the way the different law enforcement agencies work together that you feel can really help in the long run for issues that have to do, for instance, with smuggling of migrants or counter-trafficking?
Definitely. Again, it brought to the fore that the various agencies do have to collaborate. Some issues may require immigration working alongside with customs or the marine unit, and sometimes even our NGOs. And we have in the past, even prior to this draft policy, had to reach out to organizations such as Raise Your Voice to assist with victims, the issue of housing individuals. Again, those are issues that came up during the discussion, and would have formed part of the whole policy. But in terms of the law enforcement, indeed, we recognize that various law enforcement agencies would have to collaborate when we come across those situations.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. And also for bringing upfront the issue of referrals, so law enforcement doesn't stop only with national agencies. There is a role for civil society actors to bring the support that GETAM provide to vulnerable individuals in particular. And I think it's an important point to see how those referral mechanism functions to ensure that they are fit for purpose. So I will take this reference to the work of civil society organization then to address my next question to you, Ms. Karen Tobier, as the chairperson of the Coalition for Civil Society Organization of St. Lucia. From your perspective, being part of that process, what was the main challenges for civil societies to get a voice heard, and what were the most main opportunity that you could also identify and that you could help bring forward in this conversation?
So I think civil society organizations are really operate on the ground level. So they have more knowledge of what affects the common person, if you wish to say so. So they are, because they are involved in communities, they actually either part of a vulnerable population or live it, or it is close to them. They are involved with women and children. They can identify what's happening on that level. They are youth organizations as well. And in all of this, civil society members would probably be the first set of people who really may come across undocumented individuals, apart from, of course, law enforcement, if they are able to pick them up at the border. It more than likely will be that somebody reaches out to a civil society organization to assist somebody who is undocumented within the countries. So it was an amazing opportunity for us to actually sit in the room and discuss from that ground level the challenges that are there and the perceptions and the way we see people. I remember a particular point of view that came out in the room, and it made me sit and think on a personal level how we view migrants and immigration. And there was a heated discussion in one of the areas that I was in, and I ended up I said, okay, you're sounding like you have no issues if emigrating to another country, but you have a huge issue with somebody who is a migrant in your country. You see that they are coming in to take your jobs. You see that they are coming in to be part of your country, and they're going to benefit from medical, say, you see all of that, but you see nothing wrong with you leaving your own country and going out and doing exactly that in another country. As far as you are concerned, that is fine. But if you see somebody else coming into your country to do that, then there is a huge outcry that they're coming in to take your place. And that was one of the heated conversations that was in one of the forums that I was in. So it really gave me pause. And you know, after a while, we actually all sat down and we began just thrashing through those things. It was also very interesting to speak to the farmers and to listen to the challenges that even our farmers were having. And at that time, we were actually talking about people moving into St. Lucia. And one of the farmers' organization that was there, she said, they were having such a challenge in getting people to come into farming. And then we were talking about a program in Dominica that was ongoing, and where one of the issues was that as an immigrant, he had actually come in and settled and established a farm. And so we were looking at how those issues on a really ground level affected what happens with the common person. And I think coming out of that, the discussions were really interesting. And the other point was that for a lot of the times, civil society comes in on the consultative level. So we are brought into a room and there's a lot of conversations and a lot of talks, and after that we kind of forget that civil society exists. But again, because civil society in most areas are the ones that are really there on the ground level, when it comes to implementation, when it comes to the policy decisions and how it is going to impact the country, civil society plays a lead role in that. Because again, like I said, we are the people on the ground level. We have the ground level knowledge, we have the lived experiences, and we are able we are in a position that can assist in the implementation and the sensitization that needs to come with the implementation of such policies.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing such a rich experience of some of the discussion that you had, and indeed for bringing it back to something very concrete. I really like the way you felt about the perception of immigrants versus emigrants, which is something that comes across the world, and it's a very interesting discussion and often an eye-opener. We see the migrants as the others, but we don't realize how much ourselves we might have directly, like myself, or indirectly benefited from migration. But also the discussion from the farmers, the experience of Dominica in particular. We have some very nice videos from the gentleman you're referring to, the Haitian who opened the farm there. So really thanks for saying that and the centrality of the work of civil society organization into it. Now I would like to ask Aisha Jean-Baptiste, as legal officer, what was your perspective when you came to this discussion from a legal standpoint, but also what else did you learn and understood would be useful in the context of developing a migration policy for the country?
For one, myself as well as the Attorney General's chambers, we were looking at what is necessary for the laws of the migration policy. So currently, the Immigration Act is the main governing law dealing with migration and persons coming and entering and leaving St. Lucia. Also, there's the Citizenship Act as well as the Constitution. So one burning question still in my mind is whether we should go forward with having a Migration Act or amending these laws to ensure that it is in coherence with the migration policy. So I think this is where you're going to come in with assisting us with the implementation of the policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. I mean, my answer is not going to be very satisfactory because it really depends on what the government would like to do. Both ways have been done in different countries. Sometimes it's easier to go for amendment of existing legislation. Sometimes countries feel that to have an overarching legislative piece of policy is important. But as you probably saw also through the process, it also need to trigger in all the line ministries and all the different sectors, which make it, there is no perfect way of doing it, basically. You need to find like the most satisfactory and probably the fastest way, because legislative processes can take time. Thanks for turning the question to me. But yeah, that would definitely be a question to address. So then let me ask you, Ambassador Dubois, the last question on my side. You are also ambassador for diaspora. And diaspora is something we're talking about 12% of the population, 2.5% of GDP in remittances. What are your aspirations when it comes to diaspora engagement and what the policy could help St. Lucia achieve?
Actually, I prepared a little text. I should probably just sorry. Yeah. Okay, if I just read this in response to your question. When we speak of migration in St. Lucia, we often speak in numbers. We talk about the brains that have left our shores, the volume of remittances sent back home each month, or the barrels that arrive at the Castries and Vieux-Fort ports for Christmas. But from where I stand looking through the lens of the St. Lucia diaspora, migration is not just a statistic. It is a living, breathing bridge. Today I want to challenge us to rethink how we manage this bridge. Migration should not be viewed as a loss of human capital, but rather as a profound opportunity to accelerate St. Lucia's socio-economic development. The shift from brain drain to brain gain. For decades, the prevailing narrative around Caribbean migration has been one of brain drain. We watch our brightest minds, trained by our own institutions, leave for New York, London, Toronto, and beyond. We watch our brightest being targeted and poached by the so-called first world countries. However, the modern diaspora perspective flips this script. We need to transition from managing brain drain to mastering brain circulation and brain gain. The diaspora is no longer a community living abroad. It is an extension of St. Lucia itself. Our people overseas have acquired world-class expertise in green energy, sustainable tourism, healthcare, technology, climate resilience, and much more. The question we must solve together is not how do we get them to move back permanently, but rather how do we seamlessly integrate their knowledge into our national development strategies. We can achieve this through structured, flexible frameworks, virtual knowledge transfer, allowing the diaspora experts to lecture at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College or advise government ministries remotely. Short-term consultancies, creating diaspora talent registries that match specific skills with local project deficits. Let us look at the economic reality. Remittances are a vital lifeline for thousands of St. Lucian families, directly funding education, healthcare, and daily sustenance. But remittances are primarily consumption-driven. To achieve long-term socioeconomic resilience, we must shift our focus from remittances to investment. The diaspora wants to invest in Fair Helen's future, but the pathways must be clear, secure, and modern. Imagine the impact of diaspora bonds, government-backed securities specifically structured for St. Lucians abroad to fund critical infrastructure like upgrading our healthcare facilities or investing in renewable energy grids. Imagine streamlined processes for diaspora entrepreneurs who want to establish public-private partnerships, bringing capital and innovation to our agriculture and digital sectors. To unlock this, migration management must include easing the bureaucratic hurdles that often frustrate St. Lucians returning home or trying to do business from abroad. A digital frictionless one-stop shop for diaspora affairs is no longer a luxury. It is an economic necessity. True migration management also acknowledges the social fabric of our island. The diaspora is a powerful advocate for St. Lucia on the global stage. Whether it is lobbying for climate justice in the international fora or mobilizing disaster relief within hours of a hurricane impact, our overseas communities are our best ambassadors. But to maximize this potential, engagement cannot be reactionary or seasonal. It requires a permanent institutionalized seat at the table. The diaspora must be viewed as an equal partner in drafting national development policies, not just an afterthought called upon during times of crisis or elections. Ladies and gentlemen, the geography of St. Lucia may be bounded by 238 square miles of beautiful Caribbean island, but the nation of St. Lucia is global. Effective migration management is the key that unlocks this global potential by treating the diaspora not merely as a source of charity, but as a critical pillar of socioeconomic development. We could build a more resilient, innovative, and prosperous St. Lucia. We need to dismantle the invisible walls between those who left and those who have stayed. We need to work together to build a future where the wealth of our diaspora's experience flows seamlessly back into the St. Lucian soil of our homeland.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Dubois. It was very inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing the remarks and for highlighting a vision for diaspora engagement, and in particular the notion of St. Lucia as already having global citizenship and to be able to capitalize on that. I must say I'm quite passionate about the issue of diaspora. I'm passionate about a lot of things, but diaspora is among them. And in particular, recognizing that when it comes to diaspora engagement, it's about trying different modalities of engaging, because there is not a one-size-fits-all. It's trying new models, trying new ideas. The issue, the potential for that you refer to for having diaspora investing in productive investment through different financial instruments is something that is extremely promising in the Caribbean, but something that is not yet developed at a scale where it would really allow a member of the diaspora to want to put their resources and ensure that they have the return on investment. But the potential is definitely there. The willingness is there.
If I may just add quickly, my office, we've engaged the Library Credit Union, actually, with regards to promoting a program where the diaspora is viewed as an extension of, their audience, so to speak.
That's very encouraging to see this practice. And we hope they can also inspire other countries across the Caribbean to capitalize on the Caribbean diaspora. All right, I think we're taken by time, right? So how much more time we have for question and answer? 10 minutes, all right, that's perfect. So now is your turn to ask us questions. I already see 2 hands raised. 3, do we have microphones to share with the audience?
So we have some microphones that we'll bring into Mr. Avril, we'll bring the mic to you. But we'll also have some questions online and be prompted as to the questions online. There are a few questions already. So we'll keep the remarks as concise as possible so we get as many contributions as possible.
Thank you. Are you hearing me? Yeah. Thank you. Very, very quickly, I must say a number of points resonated well with me. And of course, from where I sit, I am happy that the people living with blindness, vision impairment, and other disabilities are considered to be part of the stakeholders. And I take a look at the book, and you have done it in sight-saving print. Well, actually, my colleague told me. So that's very, very good. Kudos to you. We have had to deal with issues, migration and immigration issues, and even though we did not have national policy here in St. Lucia, because our people have been affected. We have had cases where we had to find ways of sending people out of St. Lucia as refugees because of criminal activities or attacks. Thanks to our colleagues in countries out there and the diaspora support, we were able to successfully rescue some of our people. But then if we are able to do that, obviously there will be times when you also have to provide hospitality and try to help others rescue from outside of St. Lucia. We have had that experience too. A case in point was when the pandemic, and we had some of our people that were stranded here. I must say that the powers that be in St. Lucia responded very, very generously. So I'm just sharing this as just one of the little bit of experience. There's a lot more to say. I heard many reference to women, and I love women. But I am worried about men becoming an endangered species in our region. Okay? Something needs to be done to rescue our men. I commended some agencies like the Crisis Center, for example, who have included men as part of their concerns, and also the perpetrators. Very, very good. I'm just going to share a dream. Like while we are coming up with very, very effective policies and needed policies, but we are part of a sub-region. It seems to me that there has to be, we have to look at ways of synergy or the marriage between these national policies of our small country. Somebody refers to the 238 square mile. Yes, our diaspora is big out there, but our diaspora will be bigger if the East Caribbean can adopt a common policy. And with that, I am one of those that dream of a Caribbean parliament, but that's another matter. Now, I'm going to stop. Deborah has already turned. Mr. Avril, please. I hear the Director General of the OECS is here, Dr. Jules. Would like 5 minutes at the end of this to have a little chat with you because of an initiative the St. Lucia Blind Welfare Association is taking, which is looking to transform our modality of dealing with disasters from reactive to proactive. That would involve the OECS. We are looking at the OECS as being the pilot phase. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mr. Avril. So we do have about 20 questions online. We may not be able to take all of them. Before we go online, any questions in the room? And then we will... Okay, Dr. Jules has the mic, and then raise your voice. Catherine,
thanks. I understand Mr. Avril for opening the door to my question, and I'll be happy to have these discussions with him. It's an uncomfortable, direct question, because we live in times very unusual with what is happening globally. And I'm wondering to what extent the geopolitics in the Caribbean in particular, and as far as North America is concerned, has been taken into account in developing this policy. Because the whole environment for migration is not what it used to be. We know the efforts by the North to impose third country national deportations to our shores. So how does that fit into this paradigm?
Yes, you asked a direct question, and I will endeavor to answer in a direct manner. The truth be told, what's happening now, I mean, like a request for us to accept third country refugees did not feature in that discussion, as our discussions were ended by the time that developed or emerged. But certainly it is a draft document, and the hope is that we would be able to consider some of this. At the time, I don't think our geopolitical situation was as rife or as disjointed as it is right now, but certainly what existed at the time was presented by the various lead agencies, the experts who were there. I mean, the experts from IOM, the experts from our local police, and so on, the immigration department, as to what existed. But certainly it's something that we'll have to bring on board. Yeah, thank you, John.
Let me just add that what Mr. Avril said towards the end about the diaspora being treated as a regional asset, I think is part of the answer to that challenge, right?
Certainly. So, yeah, certainly.
Morning. I want to come in the middle. Come in the middle. St. Lucia has a revised Immigration Act, but it's mostly penalties for people who come, penalties for people who employ people. It doesn't really have the humanitarian part of immigration. I noticed also that St. Lucia is not a party to the 1955 UN Refugee Convention, neither the 1967 protocol. I want to say that over the last 2 weeks, it has been quite distressing that we are jailing Haitians for coming to St. Lucia and running away from violence. We all know, all aware of. So I want to say that we cannot amend the Immigration Act that we have. We need a new act because it doesn't fit into this document that has been prepared, and it doesn't fit anywhere into any humanitarian thing. We also want to say that we notice that St. Lucians, they like to go abroad. They like for us to sit here and fight for them to get refugee status, to get everything they need in other people's country. But it is extremely hard when somebody comes to St. Lucia and they don't have status. The government agencies do not cooperate. They are the first to not cooperate. They do not want to respond. They do not want to say, okay, let us see how we can work around that. They are always very punitive. So we want to ask, at what point do we as St. Lucians decide that St. Lucians are going out and we speak about brain drain? When do we say, okay, let's allow people who may be left to come in? We are inundated every day from immigration, from home affairs, from major crimes, from everybody. Can you help this person? Can you help this person? Can you help this person? It's very instructive that when 28 Haitians landed here, nobody called us. And they didn't see anything wrong in putting them in a maximum security prison. So we want to hear from the people that in charge. What went wrong?
I would like to thank you for your contribution. We will consider all your points that were stated. For one, we are in the Ministry of External Affairs, we are looking towards the Refugees Convention 1955. It is a very important one, and as you stated, regarding issues like the 28 Haitian nationals. So thank you for your participation and your comments.
Okay, as stated, we are not party to the Refugee Convention. At this time, we're guided by the Immigration Act, and therefore, when we are faced with situations relating to migrants, that is the legislation that guides our operation. That said, having participated in this process of developing the migration policy, I do understand and share your concerns in terms of how we deal with these situations. Currently on vacation, so I do not have all of the details regarding those Haitians. However, as I said, the officers would be guided by the Immigration Act, and whatever action they would have taken would be based on the Act. The Act does make provisions that if there's an investigation and there's need to deem an individual a prohibited immigrant, there is provision for them to be housed at a police station or the prison. That is what we have currently in our legislation.
If I may add, it brings to the fore, the importance of it brings to the fore the importance of what we're doing now. The necessity for this policy with buy-in from all agencies and a whole of government approach. So hopefully all agencies could keep, their hands on deck and realize that it's a sad situation, but we need to try to address it at the soonest.
Okay, we have another question from here, and then we will invite our online persons to read about 5 of the questions that we'll be able to take within this period. So the mic, you have a mic here, you could either, okay.
Good morning, everyone. My question is about education and brain drain. My question is, how does the draft policy intends to provide incentives for young persons, young students, to return home and contribute to the local economy after studying or working abroad? Thank you.
Well, I think this speaks to a more or less detailed implementation activity, but the policy does speak broadly to capturing, the abilities, the skills of our nationals everywhere. Okay, but in the implementation, then specifics like what you're suggesting, it's hoped that it would be captured.
Can I add that I found it really interesting when you said that we are no longer just bounded by the 238 square miles of land. The diaspora is actually a huge part of who we are, wherever we are positioned in the world. And there is opportunity in the space that we now live in to engage people who live out in the diaspora to contribute meaningfully, even whilst they are stationed off island, to contribute meaningfully to what is happening on island. So for me, I see education as a really huge part of that. From my area where I'm sitting, we are all doing degrees, and we're doing degrees and our masters and our PhDs online, fully online things. So we're not actually leaving our space, but we are benefiting from that. And so I am really intrigued by what you said earlier on how we engage the diaspora to contribute meaningfully to what we are doing on island, even whilst they are off island, and how we do it. And I think it will be a very interesting part of the implementation of the policy that sits there in black and white now, as to how we translate what is in policy in words and how we actually action it to make sure that we are able to specifically implement those things and to gain from that sort of place.
Okay, thank you, Karen. So we have Brendan online who will hopefully read out about 5 of the questions that our participants have, but we will please note all the questions that have been asked. So Brendan, you may go ahead and just read out, and our panel will note the questions and respond.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
A little louder. Hopefully we could get you.
A little louder?
Okay, you're good now. Yes.
Okay, I'll speak up. One of the last questions I find very interesting is, will this policy fully protect migrants entering St. Lucia from exploitation, human trafficking, and smuggling, especially women and children, and ensure equal protection and non-discrimination for all migrants? So how does the government of St. Lucia foresee this policy contributing to such protection? Over.
Okay, so go ahead.
Yes, I think we have to be pragmatic. I'm not sure the government could protect its own nationals for some of the things that we could endeavor to. It's going to be our target, but we can't guarantee that we're going to ultimately provide that protection.
I just want to add that oftentimes when we speak about migration, we see the victim part of it, and we concentrate and we see the women coming in who are victims of trafficking and all of that. But I want us to note that even in that space, we also have leaders who are stepping out from the migration. We have women leaders, we have women parliamentarians, we have people from the diaspora and migrants who are coming in who are not necessarily just victims, as we like to say, but also contribute to the policy and how the policy can be implemented. So I think that we need to look at the balance, not just the part. When we speak of the protection, it's not just to look at the vulnerable populations coming in, but also to look at the brain gain that we can get to help us to implement policies that offer protection.
Thank you. So question 2.
Yes. There's an interesting question here. I'm going to summarize just a bit. Digitization needs to be a core part of this, especially for modernization of migration governance. How is the digitization process going generally, and will the continued work happen in tandem with the rollout of the migration policy? Or where do you see digitization really falling kind of in preparation for or during implementation of the migration policy? Over.
Okay, currently we do have a border management system, and as I say this, let me recognize Dr. Henry from the OECS, who recently assisted in us acquiring and setting up the kiosks at the ports of entry, the airports specifically. So yes, we have a border management system that captures quite a bit of information. It has the capability of being improved on, and if it is used to its full capacity, we can have sharing of information with the various government agencies. But as I said, it does have the capability of capturing quite a bit of information.
Okay.
And if I miss, oh, sorry.
I wish to add also, in the workshops that we had with IOM, we implored the various stakeholders who have the data available to us to ensure that they capture it and do it in a timely and consistent manner. So when we do have the committee in form and in place, we will ensure that we have data provided on a timely basis. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go to question 3.
Sure, this is a little bit more geopolitical. With all of the changes and ongoing trends in the region, such as flows from Haiti, Cuba, Venezuela, and U.S.-American policy, how has this influenced the policy, and how do you believe the policy would be responsive to changes in trends and external policies? Over.
I think that's similar to Dr. Jules's response, his question. So probably I think we've dealt with that question in a large measure.
Okay.
Just in the interest of time, would you go to question 4?
Sure. Let me see here. Migration takes place locally, right? Internal migration across districts and constituencies. Has there been any consideration to understanding more about how St. Lucians migrate within the country to help assess how certain areas can be invested in for the benefit of all St. Lucians?
Internal migration.
Yes, this is a factor that did come up in our discussions, and we have realized that the north, there's serious migration from the south to the north, and it was considered the Ministry of Equity and Housing, they were involved, and it is hoped that in the programming that their own policy development, some of these, the social needs would be addressed with regards to, but it is in the fore and it was considered.
Thank you. And the final question, it's not your final question, I know, but it's the final one that we could accommodate within the time period. So please go ahead with the 5th question.
So one of the questions was actually a repeat of a second one that I had on the list. Given the time, let me see here if there's another one we can pull. Yeah, I think this one's important as well. In aligning with the CARICOM regional approach for migration policy, so the CARICOM regional migration policy framework, how does the policy address harmonization of labor mobility? Specifically, how can it help manage the balance between welcoming CARICOM skills and addressing local labor market realities?
Go ahead.
Okay. Currently, there is an agreement for free movement of nationals of the OECS within the region, and therefore those nationals don't require work permits. They can come in and stay indefinitely. On the CARICOM level, we already have an arrangement where certain skills are permitted to travel through the region without having to obtain work permits. There's also the regime of the CARICOM skill certificate. I believe the goal is to go full free movement. I think 4 of our sister countries have already implemented, St. Lucia not yet. But hopefully in the near future, this would not even have to be one of the agenda items for the region. But yeah, going further afoot, definitely these things would be captured in the current policy. As Ambassador Dubois would have stated, there's that much we can do in terms of welcoming and embracing, bearing in mind what we can and cannot do for our own nationals. And the discussions definitely need to be had in terms of how we handle those things.
Okay, so we have one more. There's a mic right next to you. Let this be the last question for the room. Thank you very much online.
I'm going to be quick.
Is it on?
Thank you. Now I'm going to be extremely quick, I think. And I want to start from the standpoint of where Inspector concluded. More on the point of implementation, because we know that within the OECS, there's a framework, within CARICOM there's a framework. The missing piece of the puzzle is in terms of the treatment of nationals not from CARICOM, not from OECS, those third country nationals. So hopefully this is a gap that the policy would certainly address.
So that's a statement rather than a question, or statement? So let me thank everyone. A round of applause for the panel and for all our questions online. I think this goes to show that there's a lot, as His Excellency said, Mr. Dubois, there's a lot of public dialogue, conversation, publicity, activism, I would say as well, that has to go with this. There's a lot of interest just from the questions, and 20 questions rose very early, and it means that persons would like to have this. And Catherine Silly mentioned something that is significant. You know, how do we treat other persons, and connecting all the dots. It's not just about one policy, but all the others that we have to hopefully sign, because many people have interest in this. And this is not for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is not for the Ministry of Finance, nor the Office of the Prime Minister. This is for everyone. And this policy has to work if it is that we're going to ensure that our citizens are taken care of, as well as persons hoping to come to St. Lucia. We're promoting St. Lucia as the best country to come to. And when persons come, we need to treat them and treat them accordingly and treat them right. So let me thank the panel. You may return to your seats if you wish, so that you won't become the spectacle anymore. And let me invite, as we have our closing remarks, the Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Janelle Modest-Stephen, from the Ministry of External Affairs, to give us the closing remarks. Let's welcome her, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Permits me to adopt the protocol which has already been established, but I'd like to recognize His Excellency Mr. Dubois, the UN reps here, Mr. Quesada and Ms. Nicholas, and of course Dr. Jules, the Director General of the OECS. As we conclude today's briefing, I wish to extend my sincere appreciation to everyone who joined us, both in person and virtually, for your participation and your continued interest in this important national initiative. The draft National Gender-Sensitive Migration Policy represents the results of extensive consultation, collaboration, and careful consideration, over the past 2 years. Today's discussion reflects St. Lucia's commitment to strengthening how we approach migration, not simply as a matter of movement across borders, but as an issue closely connected to development, opportunity, resilience, and the well-being of our people. We express profound appreciation for the contributions of government ministries and agencies, civil society organizations, regional and international partners, and many individuals who shared their expertise, perspectives throughout the process. We are especially grateful to the International Organization for Migration for its valued partnership and technical support. I also wish to acknowledge the exemplary work and leadership of His Excellency Julien Dubois and St. Lucia's, who's the Ambassador for Diaspora Affairs and St. Lucia's focal point on migration, whose resolute focus was instrumental in advancing this initiative to this significant stage. Special mention to Ms. Janella Nelson, who has provided superb administrative support throughout this process. She's also part of the Diaspora Affairs Unit. To our media partners, we extend sincere appreciation for your continued support in bringing visibility to this important dialogue and for the indispensable role you play in informing, educating, and engaging the public on matters of national significance. Thank you to the ICT team here today for coordinating connection with our persons here and abroad. And to St. Lucians here at home and across the diaspora, we value your contributions, your perspectives, and your continued connection to the advancement and development of our country. Ladies and gentlemen, this policy represents an important step in St. Lucia's ongoing efforts to build a modern, inclusive, and resilient framework for migration governance, one that reflects our national priorities while remaining responsive and adaptable to the realities of an increasingly interconnected world. Today's engagement is therefore an important part of building that national understanding, strengthening participation, and cultivating that sense of ownership. As we move forward, continued collaboration will remain essential. Thank you once again to everyone for your valued presence, participation, and continued support. Your engagement and contributions are deeply appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, PS. Now we're going to make history at this event. We're going to take the fastest photo of everybody in here, and everybody's going to line up here in order of heights, and you're going to figure out your height really quick. So I'm asking some of the men to push the chairs back a little bit, and we just line up very quickly. We're live, so let's go ahead. And this is the last activity before we close officially. This is the historic moment. Could probably take the desk, the small chair away. So everybody in the room? We could probably line up a few chairs to the front, and then persons will be to the back of those chairs to make it easier. So let's see, time is running out. We have a few more seconds to take this photo. So everybody in the room, Ms. Catherine, raise your voice. So to raise from your seat. Dr. Jules, and you could bring Mr. Avril along with you, and yes, Mr. Avril, you to the front as well. And let me pull this. So our media person is going to tell us when they through. So you have 30 seconds to capture this whole photo.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. One more. 3, 2, 1. Nice.
Thank you. Thank you. Round of applause. Thank you very much. So you achieved the fastest photo. So ladies and gentlemen, it is left for me to thank you. Thanks for being part of this significant activity. And this brings us to the close of the media briefing and panel Oh, another presentation. So I'm sorry. So another presentation. So you want the mic? Where's the mic? Give us a mic, please.
In recognition of your contribution to us, this is a small token from the Ministry of External Affairs. So thanks so very much, and we look forward to continuing the work that we started. Thanks so very much. You're welcome. If you want to display or share, feel free. You want me to share? Yeah, certainly. It may look like a cake, but it's not a cake.
Oh, I'm not going to drop it, right? I should not, right? Yes, I should not.
Wow.
Feels like Christmas right now. All right. We're getting there.
Okay.
That is very nice. Thank you. That's very nice.
Yeah,
That's very touching. Thank you. I very much appreciate. As I said, it has been really. It was. Yeah, you can say a long journey, but definitely an intense journey and a lot of learning for all of this. And I really dedicate that to all my colleagues that have helped support that process from everywhere around the world, and in particular my colleagues in the Caribbean. Thank you so much. We'll make it in good place in our office. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
So you've been part of the media briefing and panel discussion to launch St. Lucia's draft National Migration Policy. Thank you, everybody, and we invite you for some refreshments and networking. Thanks again. Thanks to the NTN team for bringing it live, and thank you all our participants online as well. Have a wonderful day.